White Blood Cells by the White Stripes turns 20 years old today, which is just insane. It's so awesome, and the White Stripes are one of my favorite bands. I've been meaning to talk about them on YouTube for a while. They mean a lot to me, but I thought I'd honor the White Stripes' amazing career, and especially this incredible album, by ranking all of their studio albums today from my least favorite to my favorite, yet I love every single album here. That's something that you have to remember. I think that every single album they put out is amazing. And today I'm going to be using a tier list, and the tiers that I will be using are all time, as in one of my all-time favorites, no skips, pretty self-explanatory, awesome, great, solid, meh, and bad. But spoiler alert, I don't think you'll see the last few categories here being mentioned at all. But without further ado, I think we should just get into it. And keep in mind, this was an insanely hard list to make. I've switched around them like all the time. I just listened to all the albums again today, yet I already listened to them like a ton on a daily basis almost. But I think coming in number 6, I'm gonna have their debut album, The White Stripes, which is a great album. I absolutely love this album. It almost fits on this awesome tier, which like I was just so close to putting it there. I think it is an incredible album, and especially for a debut, there were a ton of songs on here that I really enjoy. The Big Three Killed My Baby is obviously a White Stripes classic. There were a ton more here that I'm just gonna list off. Astro, Broken Bricks, Little People, St. James Infirmary Blues. I mean, there are just so many. Do, Stop Breaking Down, Jimmy the Exploder. Like, there are so many great tracks. I really enjoy actually all the tracks on here. The only reason it does come in last place is because there's just some songs where the lyrics aren't as good as what we get to see in their later albums, and sometimes the songs don't all feel that distinct from one another. Like, sometimes they do kind of just get jumbled together. A lot of people just consider this album like one big song all the way through, and I would disagree for the most part here, but it does come in just barely in last place. I'm not sure if this will be an unpopular opinion, but coming in at number 5 is Get Behind Me, Satan, also going on the great tab here, and I think this is a very good album. There are a ton of tracks on here that I absolutely love. I own almost all of the White Stripes albums, just like the CDs because my dad did, and here it is here, and I love that. I love all their album covers, but there are some incredible songs, like Blue Orchid is obviously another one of their classics, one of their best songs easily. Forever for Her is Over for Me, Little Ghost, The Denial Twist, As Ugly and I Am, and Red Rain. Those two are like especially two of my favorites by them. I don't even have a favorite White Stripes song, honestly. They're all just so great. There are just a few songs here that I almost don't really understand. I feel like there's that one song that Mag sings, and I love, I think Meg White is one of my favorite drummers, I'm not kidding, and she has some amazing vocals on some songs I'll talk about later, but there's that one song that's like 40-50 seconds that Jack plays the piano on. I think it is Passive Manipulation, and I just don't really get the song. There's a few songs here which I'm like, okay, I could easily skip over, but then again, this album is still really great. It does feature some of my favorite tracks by the band. Maybe keeping up the unpopular opinions here, we're gonna put Iki Thump on the awesome tier. Now, I love this album. This album is fantastic. The song Icky Thump is obviously like a modern day rock classic, and it took me a bit to love this song, but now I think it is easily one of the best of their career and even of the decade. I think it's almost like so revolutionary in a way, and calling a song experimental in the year 2007 is just insane and very, very impressive. I really do love this album. It has a few more of my favorite tracks by them. One that I feel like is never talked about is Conquest, which I just absolutely love. It features some of Jack's best vocals. We get some amazing drumming here from Meg, although I do feel like in the middle of the album it can kind of like steer off the tracks a little bit, just because the opening few songs are incredible and like the closing ones are really good as well. There's a few in the middle that are like a little bit forgettable, but overall this album is fantastic. And now we are halfway through their catalog. We're going into the podium here. Coming in at number 3 is an album that I think is one of the most underrated albums of all time. I never heard it get talked about. It has a bunch of tracks that a lot of people talk about, but overall as the album, I do think it is better than the 3 I just mentioned, and that is Distill, or however you say it. I'm not 100% sure, but I adore this album. I think it definitely deserves to go in the no skips one. This is the first White Stripes album that I heard that I just thought was brilliant. Now, I really enjoyed that first one, but there are so many songs in here that like feel like they inspire me in a way. Like Apple Blossom is one that the second I heard it, I wanted to learn it on guitar. Obviously, we have classics like You're Pretty Good Looking for a Girl, which again, one of my favorite tracks, and Hello Operator, Can You Give Me Number 9? But honestly, every single track on here is great. I'm Bound to Pack It Up, Death Letter, Letter is probably my favorite one on here. I know that's a pretty popular opinion. There's a few though, and A Boy's Best Friend is one that I feel like never gets talked about. I think it's like easily in the top 10, top 15 tracks. I think it's fantastic. I love every single track on this album. It never gets talked about, especially not to the same degree as some of their albums, and I never understood why. It goes on the no skips tier because every single time I listen to it, I never feel the need to skip a single song. Now, it's always a debate which one comes in number 1 and which one comes in number 2 for these two, and people will always have different opinions, and for me, coming in at number 2 is going to have to be Elephant. Now, I almost put this on the all-time tier, and I think over time it could bump up to that tier, and it's really great. Like, honestly, I feel like putting it there kind of makes sense, but I do have to put it on the no skips one just for now because it's a 5 out of 5 albums, in my opinion, so is Distill, but there's just something so special about the album, and yes, it opens with the classic Seven Nation Army, which is a song I still absolutely love. It actually took me a bit to learn this one on guitar just because I totally forgot about it for a while, but the second I got my electric guitar, I was like, hell yes, I have to learn this song. I know it's like the first riff that people learn, and I think it's a fantastic song. We have amazing songs like Ball and Biscuit, which is like, some of their songs, especially in the early years, are very short. That one's like 7 minutes long. I think it might be their longest song, and it is awesome. We have Little Acorns, we have Hypnotize, we have You've Got Her in Your Pocket. I mean, every single track on here is amazing, and my favorite one might just be In the Cold, Cold Night. As I was talking about with Meg's vocals, I think that song is, there's just something so atmospheric about it. I could probably make a whole video on it, and I might in the future. If you'd like to see that, please tell me in the comments down below. I think that song is absolutely wonderful. And basically another classic is Black Math. I mean, every single song in this album, I know I didn't mention them all, but every single song is amazing. It almost hits my number 1 spot, but coming in at number 1 is not only my favorite White Stripes album, obviously, but it's one of my favorite albums of all time. It falls into my top 20, might just fall into my top 15, and that is, of course, White Blood Cells. And this album came out 20 years ago today. There's a reason I'm making this list, and a lot of it is because of this album. I think it is utterly perfect. It opens with the incredible Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground, which obviously is like one of their biggest songs. I think one of the best, might just be the best from this album, although I could say that about basically every song. We have Hotel Yorba, which I think the chorus of that is something that every single White Stripes fan knows. We have the absolute classic song, not just of the White Stripes crew, but just in general, We Are Gonna Be Friends, which is just beautiful every single time I hear it. I think Fell in Love with a Girl is probably the biggest one from this album when it comes to the White Stripes, or at least White Stripes fans. Obviously, that song is incredible. One of my personal favorites that never gets talked about is I Think I Smell a Rat. I learned that riff, and I'll put my version at the end of this video. Hopefully it doesn't get copyrighted and take down the video and all that, but I absolutely love this song. I love every single song on this album. I think the album is utterly perfect. I just love what the White Stripes did in such a short amount of time. I mean, they were only together for like 10 or 11 years. They only had 8 years of releasing music, and what they did, the amount of impact they had on music and garage rock and all that, it feels so special to me in a way, and a lot of people. And still today, you can go back to this album and you can listen to I'm Finding It Harder to Be a Gentleman, and all these songs, every single song on here, Aluminum, The Protector, like everything, and it just still feels so special and so real and so raw. And I think that's what I really appreciate about them, is because they stripped it down to the 3 basics of rock, which is vocals, drums, and guitar, and they nailed it really well. Obviously, in some of their later works, I think it starts on Get Behind Me Satan, when they started using bass and all that, and then obviously in Icky Thump, they started using more, but this album is just utterly perfect. I love every single album by the White Stripes, and I want to hear your ranking down below. I cannot believe the White Blood Cells is 20 years old. That's just amazing. And Jack White, one of my favorite musicians of all time in general. I think he's an absolute genius, and Meg White is one of my favorite drummers, and she has some really underappreciated songs. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.